Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is collaborate. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear collaborate used is to mean to work together on an activity. And this work together is frequently done in order to create something. A second way the verb collaborate is used is to mean to conspire with an enemy. So this second definition is a bit similar to the first. There's this idea that two people or more are working together. But with the second definition, it has kind of this negative meaning. Something bad is being planned or something bad is being created. Sometimes with this second definition of collaborate, you might see this used in literature or other works, kind of where we have sort of like an evil side or bad guys and gals. But again, kind of that idea that two people are working together for sort of an evil purpose. You should know that collaborate is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're going to drop the E on the end and then add ing to form collaborating. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by just adding the letter D, since this verb already ends in an E. Our base verb, collaborate, ends in an unvoiced T sound. So when we add that past tense ending, we're going to add an extra syllable and we're going to make an id sound. So our past tense and participle forms should sound like this. Collaborated, collaborated. Now, I just have one phrasal verb for us to look at, and it's not all that different. It very much connects back to the first definition we were looking at. But I want you to be aware that it's pretty common to see the verb collaborate and the preposition with used together. So again, our meaning here is to work on a task with another person or a group of people. So what follows that with preposition is kind of the other person or people with whom the subject is working. So an example of this might be Burger King will collaborate with franchisees and suppliers to reduce greenhouse gases. Saw this sentence in a newspaper article this week as I was reading about different things businesses are doing or attempting to do in order to reduce the harmful effects of climate change. So here, Burger King is one large corporation. They are going to work with smaller individual locations. Those would be the franchisees, and then the suppliers, the people who provide meat, lettuce, tomatoes, etc., all the paper products, etc., that go into their restaurants. So together, these different groups are going to work together to reduce greenhouse gases. Let's continue using our verb of the day, collaborate, in a couple different tenses. Today, we'll practice the simple past tense and the simple present. Let's start with the simple past tense. As a reminder, we're using this verb tense to describe an action that was completed at some known point in the past. You might see time signals in individual sentences like yesterday, last month, 10 years ago, that those are all telling us kind of a definite point in the past. But sometimes that known point in the past is implied as part of a conversation or as part of a longer text or paragraph or story, as it may be. So in the affirmative, the thing to know is that we're going to use our regular simple past tense form of this verb. And this is true no matter what our subject is. So the form does not change in the simple past tense. You can see that in the example. Greece collaborated with two U.S. universities to create an algorithm to identify high-risk visitors for COVID testing. Again, this is another sentence I've borrowed from a news article. So this is describing a real event where the country of Greece worked with two research universities here in the United States to try and figure out a way how to identify people who might be traveling to Greece and who would be high risk for COVID. And so they could focus their testing and monitoring on those individuals. And they're using technology to do that. If you want to make a negative simple past tense sentence, what you want to do is use did, not, and then the base verb. So we're not using that ed form in the negative. You might hear some people use the contraction didn't and then the base verb. That's fine. They both mean the same thing. I just always like to point that out in case you're listening and you hear something that maybe is a little different than what you've studied. Let's look at another example. The famous singer did not collaborate with the filmmakers. So here, I think I saw this in connection to a documentary that was being produced. And it's about a particular famous person, but this famous person did not work with the people who were making the film. So they still interviewed and tell this story about the singer, but the singer isn't involved, did not contribute ideas or information to the particular film. Lastly, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple past tense. To do this, we want to start with did, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. So again, notice with our yes and no question, we're not using that ed form of the verb. That's only in the affirmative. So another example could be, did the team collaborate well while working remotely? So this is a question many people asked during the pandemic. Will my group be able to work on projects together even though we're not in the same physical working space? Now let's take a moment to look at some simple present sentences. Remember, we use this verb tense to describe habits and routines. We also use it for facts. The key to remember with the affirmative simple present is to pay attention to the subject. If the subject is I, you, we, or they, then you can just use the base verb. But if the subject is he, she, or it, you're going to want to add an S to the end of that verb. You can see that in the example. Our community college collaborates with local businesses to develop training programs. So here we're describing one entity here, one thing. So this is like an it, the community college. They are working together with local businesses to create new training opportunities. This is great for the community college. They're helping more students. It's also great for businesses because they are getting more highly skilled workers. If you want to make a negative simple present sentence, then our structure, again, is going to depend on what our subject is. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we'll use do, not, and then the base verb, or don't and the base verb. But if the subjects are he, she, or it, we'll use does not and then the base verb. Here's another example. The community association doesn't collaborate with developers. So here we're talking maybe about like a neighborhood association and maybe real estate developers. Here they are not working together. Finally, let's look at the structure of making a simple present yes or no question. To do this, we're going to start with either do or does, whichever form matches our subject, and the subject's coming next. After that, we use the base verb. So again, notice here, the only time we're using collaborates with an S is in the affirmative when our subjects are he, she, or it. So let's look at our yes or no example. Do teachers at the school collaborate with one another? Pardon. Here, we're wanting to know if teachers are working together, maybe to create projects, um, find different ways to communicate with students, parents. It could be just a variety of ways for teachers to work together. Now, let's spend some time looking at a few words that are related to our verb collaborate. And the first word we're going to look at is the noun collaboration. This can have a couple different meanings. One would be the action of working with someone to produce or create something. An example of this might be they're working in collaboration with the mayor. So here we are describing the action of some group of people, the subject in the sentence, and the mayor. They're coming together and working together to create something. A second way to use the noun collaboration is to refer to that thing that has been produced or created by two or more people who have worked together. An example of this could be this song was a collaboration. So maybe one musician is describing that a new song that's been written was actually produced or created with the help of others. It just wasn't his or her own work. Another related word is the noun collaborator. This is a person who works jointly on some activity with one other person or a group of people. An example of this might be Paul McCartney and John Lennon were collaborators throughout the 1960s. These are two famous musicians. They were part of the Beatles, and they were known for writing the majority of the music the Beatles recorded. They would write together, sometimes working on lyrics or the music, and they, again, very much worked together or worked jointly. The next word we're going to look at is the adjective collaborative. This means produced or conducted by two or more parties working together. An example of this might be the project was a collaborative effort, right? So here, collaborative is describing the noun effort. The last word we'll look at is the adverb collaboratively. This is describing something that has been done in a way that has two or more parties. This could be individuals or groups, again, who are working together. An example of this, the bill was collaboratively written. So here I might be describing legislation that is being discussed, perhaps in Congress, and the idea is one person is not responsible for it. It is some sort of group effort. Maybe many senators have contributed ideas to this proposed law. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.